まで違う、これだけは譲れない。世界中にのと言われたって、私が任せてあげるために大切な時間、よしは止まらない、落ち込んでる暇はない、毎日が毎お礼だ、言いたいことだらけのリスト、話すと長くなってしまうから手短に歌で伝えるよ。君を見つけたあの夜からリズムは加速し始めた。一日たったの24時間じゃ全然足りないんだ。まだ夜に追いつけないのにもう朝が来る。あと1時間でいいからあの月を眺めていたい。君と同じ月をありふれた今に恋したら少しだけ才能上がった未来、そんな風に明日を待っていた。きっと理解されない、されなくても構わない、世界はノートに書いたんだ。誰にも読めないくらいの小さな文字で、私は一人しかいない、体は一つしかない、だからこそ全身全霊で自分に嘘はつかない。それは当たり前じゃないってこと、たまに忘れそうになるけど、君の限りある貴重な時間、そばにいてくれてありがとう。1年365日じゃ全然足りないんだ。まだ冬が溶けていないのにもう春が来る。あと1日でいいからこの季節眺めていたい。君が描く今をどれだけたくさん時間があったって人も足りないんだ。君に聞いてほしい歌がまた生まれてく。あと1時間でいいからあの月を眺めていたい。君と同じ月をありふれた今に恋したら少しだけ才能上がった未来、そんな風に明日を待っていた。この夜をそっと抱きしめながら愛の最強が私最強の敵のガイ、夢と希望で胸が光い、ほらこんなに世界は輝いてる。それは君がくれた魔法の力、まるで宝石みたいだ。私雲より高く上がり、空を自由に泳ぎ回る、神様に 君となら行けるんださ世界のてっぺんで踊ろうよ私朝まで歌いたがる伝えたいことたくさんあるまだ言葉にはできていないけれどそれは君がくれただからだ生まれ変われる気がしたそれが正解でも不正解でも自分で選んだ答えだから誰にも採点されたくない決めつけられたくない最後がでも強くなってないよ夜の片隅に震えていた全てが無駄じゃないと分かったんだこうして君と出会えたから I'm 最強が怖いものなんてないよ足りないかけらを見つけたからもう誰にも負けない臆病で嘘だらけの自分にも視界を抜け出して星空へ夢物語と笑われても君となら行けるんださ世界のてっぺんで神様のお前でぎこちないそのステップで踊ろうよWe never feel it every Friday so get back free わかんなったであらがうほど目障りな感想か残響して離れない打ち抜けした目覚める小さいすまされている世界にいて支配されてゆくその手を離さないで不確かよ無限大のその先まで We never feel it Body in my heart Can't hold it right 僕になって I will wait for myself 描いたこの気が向かって何しろない幕へ突き抜けるから We can't stop right now 味の胸に忘れないただもがくだけの不条理な世界なんてぶっ壊して極めろ掲げたフィギュア無視奪うリフレクションする手にどうするかない渦巻いて抜かするか食らい尽くして歌を俺の迷われて誰一人邪魔なんてさせない We never scare us around Like in my heart 手にも痛い胸にあらって Determination, first in line. I wanna take it back. 揺るぎないもの全てをつなぎ止めて離さないように。境界線貫いてゼロの先まで We never fade apart. But in my heart 逆の未来を振り払って I'll live it for myself. 磨いたこの自由これがもう知らない場所へじゃあ突き抜けるから We can't stop right now. I need a moment. Leave this life. 能力主義だろ主義だろクラシッククラシック感情くだらないじゃんこの世は弱いつだってあのランキングみたいにただ強さや弱さの正体簡単に測れない切り裂いて単純に今で最後悲しさ転生だ悪魔態度力なんて大体初めから決まってそれが才能わかる平凡力なんて大体初めから決まってそれが才能神の顔と感情ね能力主義だろ主義だろクラシック勝ってない愛もなんもないクラシー強者の孤独とクラシー全然負けないから当然ね感触さらないわ才能無線無感あの神々さえも範疇ねただ強さを求めた将来超残念報えない打ち抜いて簡単に過剰最強意味ないさ転生だ何も変わんないよ対象不利ないクラシー愛となってないピンチなってないクラシー無敵の孤独とクラシー称賛いらないからもうちょっと愛情くれないかな決まってそれが才能わかる平凡力なんて大体初めから決まってそれが才能神の顔と感傷ねこの際全てを忘れて去って生まれ変わりも許されない物語のためになんてはいやればいいでしょう能力主義だろ主義だろクラシー勝てたってない愛もなんもないクラシー強者の孤独とクラシー全然負けないから当然ね感触くだらないわ
Mira, bebé, hola bebé, ¿cómo estás? Espero que bien. Mira, bebé, que yo estaba, pues, no he podido descansar bien estos días y que, bueno, ya más o menos tampoco puedo descansar bien. Bueno, la cosa es que me quedé como despierta durante todo el test, ¿no? Estaba en el baño. Ella llega y me escribe y me dice, hola mi reina hermosa, ¿cómo está? Me voy para la clínica. Y yo me quedo como que, ¿y qué tengo que ver ahí, no? O sea, no le escribí ni le respondí tampoco. Pero, o sea, bebé, ¿qué pretende ella con decirme eso? Que yo me preocupe.
だから自分で切り開いてくんださまよいながらたどり着いた先は敗北でも勝利でもなくただ確かに今生きていてこのビートだけ
果てなき夢続く旅の途中まだ見えぬ明日を覗いてみるそこにあるのは仲間の笑顔か絶望か怒りかわからないけどどれほど熱く恋願っても過去には戻れないからせめて未来だけは 日にもみんなでただ笑えるように一世一代一年発起一世一代一網打尽一心同体同感 Only one number one 音声ガーデンボーイ純情可憐であれ麗しい飛行上心ぐっと胸に刻んで前髪にスカートの丈高速遵守しましょうピンと姿勢正して誠実に受け継ぎたいわ凛々しい教えを現在過去未来なでしこの曲げないポリシー Don't be shy 誇らしく流されたりしないよゆっくりと咲かせましょう清く正しく Keep your pace 一番の味方は自分自身みんなもっと美しくあれまっすぐに進みましょう生徒手帳の中の思想を地でゆくのですなんて理想的なスタイル学びは温故知新志やめそんなの全部壊したい正しいものは何見えなくな月の花よ風に乗り破壊と再生の繰り返しピポパッピ空に出しちゃうからマットな叫びで世界を真っ二つに割っちゃえ破壊と魔法のオーケストラピポパッピラブデストロイヤーステージなノイズで I feel love 踊りまくれ歌え歌え叫べ叫べ破壊破壊キラキラキラ歌え歌え叫べ叫べ破壊破壊キラキラキラマスカーデスポイヤー 長い赤い糸何百光年でも超えてて会えたあなた二人お出かけ遊びに行くこともゆっくりゆっくりなれるかなあの日結ばれたつながりに腕を引かれ少しずつだけど隣で重ねた笑顔増えてく初めて知ったあの場所もまた明日行くお店も素敵な日々に描かれるでしょう楽しみねおやすみ並び立つ足に絡む赤い糸固く縛られた結び目ほどくさなが二つに分けた道が生まれてゆくこのまま離れたくない二人の気持ち共に揃うのならこうしてずっといられるかなあの日浮かべてた理想の背を追いかけてた今ならきっと行きたい方へ手を取って進める銀河中の星々から見つけるような奇跡だからもしも二人離れたってその形を変えて今もまたあの日結ばれたつながりに腕を引かれ少しずつだけど隣で重ねた笑顔増えてく初めて知ったあの場所もまた明日行くお店も素敵な日々に描かれるでしょうどこまでも大切に楽しみねおやすみ
バサボス詐欺で血がよりも濃い血が間違いない荒ぶる帽子最強の二神道シッパンツハンパンなカンパンスでもぶんだからどの顔してもギュンでボンバン乗る祭りが来るいい加減だるい言い訳が3件まして決めんのが産んで溶けたやつの残虐なんでだって残虐環境はしつこいぜ占い敵の使えない破壊いい聖典漫画はスターまるでチップなクレカメル色のレンズはフェイク全然いけてないそのハイプな質を舐めるフェイクもろもろもら主文ちょば握手見たる文学商売運が勝負決めるテール切って捨てるカードテール因果応報のワームホール放り込んでも湧いてくる因果合法の暴力装置と解釈排除絶足りないこと足りない物足りない泥まで 月曜日は月曜に火曜は怒りを覚悟しとけバトルヒプノシスアクションエンスコラプションバズけ飛ばすリリックスノーティラスの潜り襲来イグニッションこのエンドレスゲームの果てが世界の終わりでも抗い続けるぜディビジョンラップバトルで最後の審判黙ってろともチンカなチンパンピンからキリまでペイバックチキチキにシーバーセーバーラックブリシップさんに胸ついてこれんか俺らのシーカーチンタンラックに立ってんだ引きちぎられないよね
マジだるいぜすぐに息切れして尻見せまあいいや逃げていいぜラップにかじめ一歩でいいぜ
手のひらに袖としたわかるよな袖にしちゃ
威力偵察は強引まあやめとけよ不適切行為
嘘はなしでことをなす話はかつて達成もなく消えナスティな今に至るわけであまねく甘く声耳を塞いでサイレントしようと臭いものと二で塞いでも脳に響くサイレン
死んだ万象万神新し尊厳の領辱因果万能の冒涜行為と化してくらいとく
夜空中は逃避行中いざないやつかのネオンの白夜悪戦苦闘コンフリクトこう比べに勝ちコンクリの壁をかわすヒプノシスアクションエンスコラプションシナプス焦がす君もう誰にも止められないイグニッションいざ語る神聖いざならてライムを踏み散らし歴史刻みつけるディビジョンラップバトルでバチバチじゃなきゃマジバチかいじゃねたちまち鼓膜から大道ホップバック黒幕の黒幕煙に巻く背景張り合ってハリーアップフェイススモーク焚いてそれでアイデアのアイデアはイデンティティ失うね
線引きと切らすなまたエンジンが一度
一投目おパッチふさげその愛タクチ無作為な悪意まくし立ってるガッツリどんくれてめどんくせえで文句ねえならマイクにギンな
文句ら正月文句ら相手に挑発してたらきりえな
閉めた先閉めたガラスの破片に飛び込む格好はないか
大きすぎる代価力は口から湧く力
ヒプノシスアクションエンスコラプションバズけ飛ばすリリックスノーティラスの潜り襲来イグニッションこのエンドレスゲームの果てが世界の終わりでも抗い続けるぜディビジョンラップバトルで
バスターブロス舐めた連中には仕置きが必要だ袋の街の見聞録一度プレゼンツ1000本ノック覚悟はいいか俺に出くわすダサいなんだなマジで半端ないな耳塞いだって無駄さ What's up
わざわざやられに来た雑魚たちまとめておもてなしいやいやかいつまんで話すぜこの場のプレイヤーよ Wannabes 軒のヘブンズとは泣く泣く叩けその先は中作階段うっせバカ堪忍袋はもう限界だ
台本通りみたいだ本当ゲー足りないね袋のゲートの中で無事でいようってのは虫がいいねそう間違いないねそろそろバチが当たるまるけどムルマスゲーメイと鼻向けがありのラインをゴー
あっさりと行くぜボン100の座標ども育成の切れ端に切り刻むぜキリキリ前切りがないな一世駆除がベストでしょラストの一匹すら残ってないなグッジョブ Oh yeah
俺はギャングスターメジャーディザスター先生お前はハムスター見たくアングの層あクソみたいに悲壮一掃する二教師にかけちゃ終わりだぜ二教徒反面教師の顔面教師少子千番手伝うぜその顔全東海遠洋の海サメの餌選考会それが嫌なら豚バカに連れてこう
街じゃ夜な夜な昼ははけてるやつがパケる今日もアップデートアップゲーゲット虫歯の汚ねえゲロどもけれども俺の目を盗むなんて窃盗罪とセットだぜ
シンジケートの要人警護急に重回系統なくとも遂行するこのゲート常
常に戦闘モード Z でボートの連中はもろともマイクでしょヤングボーイズネームソー無意味なみヤングボーイズネームナイス無意味なみヤングボーイズネームソー無意味なみ Tell us not in us life 無意味なに
渋谷ゲリラジャンプセッションはい始まるよ言葉のファッションショーそれマジって本当だよマジックイリュージョン味あるある上がるたちまちブロックパーティー分かりみ深いラムダラボラトリー手取りやし取りラブランチックメツネガポジアホみたいなアポジホみたい鬼退治の桃太郎ならぬ小生が夢の源太郎犬猿連れた物書き売分業4小節メール小説か
そうですかこっちはすからか野良犬のライムをぶっ込むた各編がパーティー勝つ時みたいにドル箱山積みでジャラジャラリ
いつも通りファイア通りでアイドリングしようよコーヒータイムサクセスが大事作戦会議悪戦苦闘でばらけるチームワークチクタク時間が無理に過ぎてくのさらしいちゃらしいよねまあ楽しいよねいいんじゃない
むせびなく救済願うサインがまるで9歳のチャイルド見過ごせないそれが摩天楼極度に高い湿度の包囲網オーネロンインドフローで描くこの街のイントよ魔境歌舞伎町聞き慣れないイントネーション食欲旺盛な多様性の惑星
この街では24時を過ぎてからがシンデレラまるでインペリアルな夜を作り出すインテリア誰もが舞台装置そして誰もが主役助け合うのがタスクだって人はみんな子猫ちゃん
これでチャンスこれでチャンスどうしたって不平等他人の不要動になんてなるなよな腐るな大災難ついてないぜ玉突き事故じゃたまんない会社にぶつけといて被害者面はないんじゃない
かつて闇市今や立ち位置は東京の心臓新宿タウン生きた者の人生溶け合う街間違ってもここのルールを犯すなかつて闇市今や立ち位置は東京の心臓新宿タウン生きた者の涙が溶け合う街コミカスの詭弁などでごまかすな
もう待てないだろそんな気長に暗闇から光が羨み
そんな感情がつまさきほどにつらなり
迎える船旅それが最高でも最低でも
最高
かオープンザドアそうくんならほらドクンだそこから俺らの時代だ
こじ開けるにはまず手を伸ばしてわずかなわずかをそり忍ばして
ショットワンドドア立てバウンドそうなくいくかよ見ろよこの傷跡立ち目よ煙かき分け何をとつぶさに追うさ奴らの足跡
ブレイコブレイコウェルカムサウェイコ秘密基地抜け向かうよ目的地来たる日のためかきためた無駄口
鬼の犬間にばらまけつけてマリー
隣の殿の盾となる覚悟
不器用でバチそうでもできるプレイフォー
小さな連鎖めいてさざめいて
棒用と凡用入り混じるパンよ
カビ臭いルール刈り殴る時に惑うさまようストラグル一枠の勝利いただくぜソリ高みで見下ろす今まで以上に理不尽なルール刈り殴る時に惑うさまようストラグル一枠の勝利いただくぜソリ頂に登るその日まで勝利
行くぜこの街のトップランナー俺らバスタブロスの出番だワキな奴ら掃除するポスター俺らランディステリー足止めんな前へ歯向かう奴は足止めんだここが俺らの街ブクロシティ駆け抜けるウィンランディステリーバスターブロス不動の番犬負ける気がしねえ準備万全この街で大手振って歩きたければまずは俺倒してからだ犬も食わねえディスは興味ねえ骨のあるやつ以外通さねえライカ3つ頭のけるベロス舐めてかかるならすぐ蹴り飛ばせ甘くみんな兄弟の絆いろんなスキルできるチルよりキルだ一切躊躇なしで即成敗一切からウェスサイコス限界常にワンショットワンキル出し切る負けたら明日はないと言い切る強者倒してくバトルの醍醐味ヘイターは明日の燃える粗醍醐味
吐きそう自殺言葉を吐くように音で繋いでローマ街の外国冒険
なわけねえだろ手に持つマイクロフォン超えてみろよそこが愛のドン放棄するかどうせない正気山田教
負ける気しねえな吸ったもんなすんなボンカこちとら超出世スーパーノンパ貫く地元アイワイチーズ
足跡もこの街の一部
山だけの根っこアワルーツチェックしろ俺らが袋のルール
この手で走らせるストーリーつまらないライフなんてストーリーペンと手つなぐ点と点運命つかむルカムベッドベンいつか銅像立てるなんてどうよ
果てまで発想が厨房
なんだと息があってもやっぱ俺らやべえ青春返上でひたすらラップゲーム
目指すまだ見ぬ頂点の王者袋ナンバーワンヘッドに王かこの街から金が誕生だ最強の切り札中ジョーカー迂回も交代もないまっすぐ叩き込むぜ兄弟の愛ホーミーズランこちら手上がる方に俺らについてくれば No worries 行くぜこの街のトップランナー俺らバスタブロスの出番だワクな奴ら掃除するバスター俺らランディシティ足止めん名前歯向かう奴は仕留めんだここが俺らの街袋シティ駆け抜ける We love this city 行くぜこの街のトップランナー俺らバスタブロスの出番だワクな奴ら掃除するバスター俺らランディシティ足止めん名前歯向かう奴は仕留めんだここが俺らの街袋シティ駆け抜ける We love this cityここはどこだ行くぞパリだ
常識など通用しないパンドラの街
新宿今夜もまた居残りとにもかくにもシアと掃除摩天楼の維持なめたため口すみませんミジンコの反撃どうした What's up my friend どこ許さん傷つけたやつはどこ迷える子猫ちゃん相手なら愛の力あげるから
そう次から次と溢れ出る情報根拠なき起きる無駄な騒動今夜もネオンの影が許す騙し暴力後を絶たず一度根絶した時代それが Why 生きて生きなさい
まだまだ戦いは続くだろうちょっと
摩天楼
見せてやろう春夏秋冬レッサーパーティー挑まれるロートゥナイ受けてた
ジャパランジャパラン摩天楼だエビバー
時は来たワインスピリット白か黒か熟成タイムさあ決めようか
準備いいか真のリーダー摩天楼だ
So come on Let's do it 先生 Shall we go 3, 2, 1
常軌を逸脱人生脱落一線を越えてしまった肩の結末診療治療悪の一気量払拭させましょう闇の蜃気楼
白でその黒埋めろオセロ先生の頼みいっそ任せろ何もできないよりだいぶマシ備えあれば憂いなしもうたまにはパーッと行きましょう一気嫌なこと忘れてさハイタッチ僕らは永久不滅ヒーロー僕力ビジョン一から新宿完全無敗の現状どいつもこいつも好きある戦争
マイクは常に握りしめよう
上等
摩天楼
さあ行くぞ春夏秋冬レッサーパーティー挑まれるロートゥナイ受けてた
ジャパランジャパラン摩天楼だエビバー
時は来たワインスピリット白か黒か熟成タイムさあ決めようか
準備いいか真のリーダー摩天楼だ
恐縮ですか飛び跳ねようぜ
手を挙げてそう飛び回るんだカムジャンジャンジャンジャンジャンジャンジャンジャン Everybody ジャンジャンジャンジャンジャンジャンジャン Put it down
スーツで気合が入って繰り広げるドッグだパンチライン僕の可愛い子猫に手を出すやつはマジでありえないここは MADENRO 最強届けてみせましょう
そう皆の力で勝ち取ろう摩天楼
さあ盛り上げよう
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the final round.
春夏秋冬
お手並み拝見
挑まれる
お相手しましょう
受けてたジャパランジャパラン大好きだ Everybody 時は来たまだ飛び足りない白か黒か新宿センターさあ決めようか
準備いいか真のリーダー摩天楼だ
消えなくこうから弱者につけ込む姑息なやつ俺様の周りでちょこんなカートうぜんだよここは横浜いやすいませんじゃ済まさねえぞてめえら的のついたターゲット逃されこのバレット見送るぜ地獄へのバケーション叩き込んでやる覚えとけ忘れてんなら全員 Don't forget 射程に取り巻き4もねほらてめえだてめえよボケとぼけたって今さら無理汚ねえ面にこすいやり口越えてはいけない一線越えたてめえらは死刑死ねハンマーの危険なトリガー遊びじゃねえんだドキな冗談じゃねえ弾が飛び出すドンテストマスターハンマーの危険なトリガー遊びじゃねえんだドキな冗談じゃねえ弾が飛び出すドンテストマスター飛んで火にいる夏の虫動けば絡まる悪の首このネットからは逃げ出すの無理一網打尽ドラッグにこの組織拉致監禁恐喝エリーまだまだある際助動裁くべきかはすでにこの手の中にある追訴のカーニバル容赦しないお前らにはクソな役をばらまくディーラー俺から逆にメスを入れ叫んでも届かねえ SOS言い訳は通じない上々酌量する数字愛すらないお前らとの付き合い所詮俺の出世の踏み台ハンマーの危険なトリガー遊びじゃねえんだドキな冗談じゃねえ弾が飛び出すドンテストマスターハンマーの危険なトリガー遊びじゃねえんだドキな冗談じゃねえ弾が飛び出すドンテストマスター同じ釜の明治食べた仲間も明日の敵歪んだ正義アウトレイジ飛ばしてやる活動劇善と悪にしたくいつ貴様の掲げたジャスティスけど極まりなくアクシス誰が望んでいるそのアクチャー一度吐いた壺は飲むなはいのそれが真のソルジャーだから叩きのメスジャス戦法立つ者が勝者だろう結局貴様のエゴに出るヘド目的のためでビルレット魂売り何を得れるでしょうキングも守れずにチェックメイトハンマーの危険なトリガー遊びじゃねえんだドキな冗談じゃねえ弾が飛び出すドンテストマスターハンマーの危険なトリガー遊びじゃねえんだドキな冗談じゃねえ弾が飛び出すドンテストマスター
渋谷のゴーストパスタフリンポセがマイク使って大掃除いくよ誰も僕もヘイ僕の虜渋谷系だよミスターロリポップよりどり緑な言葉コーディネート
朽ちた花びらに黄昏の羽がひんやりと流れてくビリジアン風ミステリアスもう触れられないあの日の命を刻む
後遺症なノービスから転がるスタディばらまいて優しさの外に手を伸ばして後遺症なノービスから転がるスタディ目で出し出す通り踊り羽伸ばして君の瞳が助け求めてる誰これ構わずひなが飢えてる目の下のクマシワのあるマスクよれてるスーツ身にまとうルール正義のコーテイナンセンスなメイデイ看板突き破って飛んじゃってエイデイ整列をグー後手に回ればブー Give me your give たのに思い出して体に痛みが来る前に逃げ出してくる彼に俺先に出さるなどに差し上げたのに今の自由とは何過去の自分のままに Say no code Hey nonsense な Mayday 看板突き破って Hey 飛んじゃって Hey day セレクソ軍後手に回ればブー Give me your Give me your Yeah yeah got alright まと迷える俺たちのヒーローまとまれない希望希望クローンその手に何を握ろう Got this alright Got this alright もっと言わなし俺たちのヒーローまとまれない希望希望身の程にも合うその日を願うから今 Get get got alright Get get got alright
Round and round we go. Where we stop, nobody knows. In the end, we lose control. But right now, we're invincible. Heard you were lost in a plastic dream. Bought every lie from the TV screen. And now you don't even know what it means. They sold you lies, baby, oh no, no. The glitter don't shine like it did before. You never really find what you're searching for. In this life, are we something more? Or are we just a number? Round and round we go. Where we stop, nobody knows. In the end, we lose control. But right now, we're invincible. 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 Please tell me what's the motivation. I think it's twisting me out. Is there some higher revelation? Don't know what it's all about. The glitter don't shine like it did before. You never really find what you're searching for. In this life, are we something more? Or are we just a number? Round and round we go. Where we stop, nobody knows. In the end, we lose control. But right now, we're invincible. 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 Dancing 'cause we buzzing, we loving this, don't know nothing. Yeah, we on our way to try to be something, that's something. So yeah, we okay. Dancing 'cause we buzzing, we loving this, don't know nothing, but we trying to get a little bit of something. Then we gonna go and live it on a replay. The glitter don't shine like it did before. But right now we're invincible. The glitter don't shine like it did before. But right now we're invincible. Invincible. 行かない行かない行かないで。足りない足りないあなたが。泣かない泣かない泣かないで。開けない開けない。
Let's get going. It's time for a twitch. Now, get ready. Fire. 先生ちょっと聞いてください廊下に変なやつがいて枕の草しどころじゃない
大体退屈ばっかりのこの世界であなたのこと思って目覚めた週末の朝は 一人振り出しに戻ったみたいな朝、毎日心に名前をあげる。恋のレトロニム、大体退屈ばっかり。
Aspergiamo il corpo del nostro Papa Francesco. Reggiamo il corpo del nostro Papa. Aspergiamo il corpo del nostro Papa Francesco. Reggiamo il corpo del nostro Papa.
I normally don't talk about OBS updates, but this one's actually pretty important. Typically in your recording settings, you'll have the option to record your stream as either an MP4 or an FLV file. Most of us like MP4s because they don't take up a ton of room on our hard drives and it'll work with literally any video editing software. But it has one major downside that affects all of us at least once, but probably more often. If your OBS crashes or your computer crashes while you're recording, an MP4 file becomes corrupt and you won't be able to save your footage, which can really suck. Instead, you can choose an FLV file which fixes that issue, but then you have a problem that almost no video player and no video editing software can actually use a .FLV file. Well, finally, this OBS update changes all of that. We now have an option called Hybrid MP4, which is still in beta, but this combines the benefits of MP4 along with the benefits of FLV, that if your OBS crashes, your footage will still remain intact. Would definitely recommend turning this setting on right now because losing footage can suck.
experience.
Train by day.
No. I'm too vain. That's exactly right. I look back and I think, those headphones are pushing up my hair. Isn't that sad? That's so
shave
sad.
your head.
That's sad.
You never look back if you do.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the greatest thing in the world. It's freedom.
I have a big dent here from when a meteorite landed on me when I was a kid.
A meteorite. Oh, funny story.
I know.
I've got plenty of cuts on my head. I got them all over the place.
Well, you're looking pretty unscarred.
Oh, the back of my head. I have one when I was a little kid. It's pretty big. That one of these cranes that lifts up sewer pipes. Those big concrete pipes banged me off the back of the head. Yeah.
That's not good.
Grayed out. Went to the hospital.
Were you a different person before that experience?
I don't know. I mean, you'd have to talk to my mom. I was always a little
this
wild.
Could be of autobiographical significance.
Oh, there's definitely a lot of head trauma.
Were you knocked out?
My personality. No.
Okay,
I stayed conscious, but I got close.
That's the big predictor.
I got gray. I grayed out that I came back to. I didn't completely go unconscious. So Jamie went golfing this weekend with O.J. Simpson's golf clubs.
Uh-oh.
Not with OJ. He's not here.
Exercise. I think that would be the next step.
Jamie bought O.J. Simpson's golf clubs after he
This is like a childhood dream?
No, they were just for sale. I saw them for sale. I said, why not? They came in. I wanted some big grips.
Yeah,
They weren't that
a
expensive.
couple of my friends. What did Shane get? Shane got a bunch of stuff,
I
right?
talked him into buying some stuff, yeah.
He got like scarves and
Ties. He bought a bunch of ties.
I think scarves too.
Okay. He bought a trophy.
A trophy?
And a Bill Clinton
Yeah.
signed photo.
And he spent thousands of dollars.
What was this? This some sort of O.J. Simpson auction?
Yeah, it was like an estate sale, yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
You know, he's dead now, so you can get his stuff.
Right, for nothing. Pennies on the dollar.
Well, only people like Jamie and Shane are dumb enough to buy it. It's like for a goof. It's one of those things like you're either getting it for a goof or you're a very dark person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't want to own it, even for a goof. Like if I found out OJ played pool, I wouldn't want his cue.
Was there cues? No, there wasn't. There was a weird notebook that Robert Kardashian had like handwritten stuff to him.
Blood splatter.
I was like, whoa, that might be interesting. But
it's taking a vicious turn, Joe, already.
Yeah, that's a dark story.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you only know the surface of it.
Well, it's dark in both ways. It's also dark in planted evidence. You know, there was blood at the scene of the crime that had preservative in it, allegedly, supposedly, according to Robert Kardashian, and according to, I believe, the forensic scientists when they analyzed it. It matched OJ's blood, but they had to draw blood from OJ in order to determine whether or not it was his blood that was at the scene of the crime. And some of the blood found at the scene of the crime had that preservative in it that they use. They were sloppy in the 90s, you know.
Compared to now.
Well, there was no DNA evidence back then. You know, cops were there. There's always going to be a certain percentage of cops that just want to convict somebody regardless of the evidence. And if they're, in their mind, they believe someone's guilty, they'll do whatever they can, including planting evidence, I guess. At least that's allegedly. Not that I don't think he did it. I definitely think he did it. But I also think the cops planted evidence, which is probably at least partially why he got off, you know? I think the big reason why he got off was Rodney King, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Have you gone into the whole George Floyd story at all? Have you ever looked at what they actually did to him? It's a combination of things. Like what the cop did was horrible, but also he was dying. You know, most people probably, if they did that to you, you probably would have lived. You know, that guy had an enlarged
That was my understanding
heart.
of
He was
it, yeah.
fucked up, but that cop did lean on his neck, which is always interesting to see people try to minimize that. You know, I'm always you got to be able to just say what it is.
Well, that situation can be ugly in a multitude of ways.
Yes.
Right. That's when things get, that's when it's very difficult to pick your moral pathway forward. All your choices are not good.
Yes.
Right?
Which is oftentimes the case when it comes to conflicts, right?
Yes.
Conflicts are very complicated, and people want it to be binary. They want there to be a good guy and a bad guy, and that's oftentimes not really the case.
Well, it's hard to organize yourself for combat unless you are quite convinced that you're the good guy. So there's a default to that dichotomy that's a necessary part of, even standing your own ground, right? Because otherwise you get demoralized. And so I suppose people, when they're threatened, they default to a simple narrative, and because you can't defend yourself in some ways. It's very hard to defend yourself, especially physically or militarily, without a pretty cut and dried narrative.
Well, especially like military operatives, you have to have a very your life and the people that you're with, their life depends on you not having any confusion about whether or not it's morally correct to be doing what you're doing. That's why they like to break it down to kill bad dudes. Kill bad dudes.
Right.
Real simple. Let's go. They tell us what to do, we do it. Which is what you want to stay alive. You want your teammates to stay alive. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, well, you never know when doubt will cause a fraction of a second difference in reaction time.
Oh, yeah. That's always the thing with physical altercations with people, too. Oftentimes people get sucked into these things where they're not sure whether to act or not act, and that's when they get in trouble.
Right.
Right.
That's probably true in life. You don't want to oversimplify things, too, but once you've made a decision, well, that's when it's necessary to put doubts behind you, because otherwise you just act in half measures.
Yeah, and oftentimes you have to have done the wrong thing before, like failed to act or hesitated to act, and it cost you. And then you have to learn that lesson. It's very difficult to know that without experiencing mistakes. You have to have failed to act and then realize, oh, I should have done something there.
Yeah, well, I think that's partly too one of the things that I often faced in my clinical practice and with the students that I mentored was this confusion about acting. I don't know what to do, so what should I do? Well, nothing. I'll wait around until I figure out what to do. It's like, no, you should put together a bad plan and you should implement it. Because even if you fail in the implementation, you'll gather information, and then you can rectify the plan. And so staying in that malaise until you know what to do makes you get older and more miserable, and you gather no information along the way. A bad plan is a good idea. Best, any plan is better than none. That's a good rule of thumb. And a bad plan can be incrementally improved. Right? With experience.
Right. He who hesitates is lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really difficult for young people. I think more so today than ever at any time in history, because the distractions are so many and they're so engrossing. If you get out of high school, you don't know what to do, and then you start playing video games and you're on social media, a day can slip by like that.
Yeah.
A day becomes a week, becomes a month, becomes a year, and before you know it, you're 30.
Yeah, right.
And you haven't done shit.
Yeah.
And that's really common. That's really common today. And I don't think we can ignore those factors, the factors of just engrossing distractions.
Yeah, well, and the algorithms optimize for short-term attention.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a weird thing, because you could imagine that you would want a machine that offers you what you want, right? Because you want ads that are targeted to you, because you want to see a bunch of ads that aren't relevant to you now and then, because maybe you'll learn something. And content, well, why not have a machine shovel the same sort of things that you are interested in at you?
Yes.
That's a kind of curation. The problem comes, and we haven't figured this out at all technically, and probably not psychologically, the problem comes in time frame, right? Because there's a big difference between what you might be interested in if you were diligently striving towards a long-term goal that required conscientiousness, and what's going to attract your attention right now, this moment.
Right.
And the thing about the algorithms is that they maximize for short-term attention. And so basically they're actually optimizing for hedonism.
Yeah.
And then you might say, well, so what? Because you're getting what you want. Well, the problem with short-term impulsive hedonism is it doesn't play out well over any reasonable time span.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why you have to mature, which is painful and annoying, but absolutely necessary and much better than the alternative. The alternative is exactly that's Peter Pan, right?
Yeah.
30-year-old, I still haven't grown up, and I'm a little past my shelf life now, too.
I think people are afraid of losing fun. They think that when you grow up, you lose fun. But it's silly. It's not true. You can grow up and still have fun. You just have to have discipline and prioritize your time.
Well, that's why Christ says to people that they have to become as little children, not stay. Right? You have to rediscover that.
Right. Rediscover the joy of it. Yeah, but
well,
also
kids are good for that too, aren't they? Because they teach you that again. You look at the world through eyes of memory by the time you're an adult. So the world loses its freshness. That's part of the world loses its freshness because you see your memories instead of the world.
Right.
And then kids come along and you think, oh yeah, that's really actually quite interesting. And they're so compelled by everything because their perceptions are so fresh that they share that with you, and that can help reawaken that spirit of childhood play, let's say. I've been thinking a lot about play in the last year or so.
Yeah?
Well, I spent a lot of time trying to take apart the causes of like truly pathological degeneration, right? On the sadistic side, on the criminal side, on the totalitarian side. Very curious about tyranny. And it was very difficult for me to conceptualize the opposite of that as cleanly as I could characterize its presence. Like, what's the opposite of tyranny? It's not freedom, by the way. It's certainly not anarchic freedom. It's not hedonistic freedom.
Benevolence?
I think it's play.
Play.
I think it's play.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
that makes sense.
Well, the developmental psychologist Jean Piaget, one of the things he pointed out was that so let's say play is the foundation of micro-community, right? When you're a little kid, you play a game with another kid. And then if that works well, you inhabit a little dyadic community. You're both in it together. And then if it really works, you replicate that across time, and that gives you a friend. But play is very interesting psychologically and psychobiologically because it has to be entered in voluntarily. You can't force someone to play. And it's also motivationally fragile. So mammals have a play circuit, and it can be disrupted by pretty much any other motivational or emotional circuit. So the circumstances have to be set up properly. Like the walled garden, you know that idea? The walled garden is a place that play can take place, like eternally, so to speak. And because it has to be undertaken voluntarily, it's the opposite of tyranny. And my wife and I have really started to apply this in our marriage more consciously. Once I'd figured out this relationship, because I've been lecturing to people for a long time about how to conduct themselves in life so they don't become a tyrant or a handmaiden to the tyrants, right? A silent handmaiden to the tyrants, let's say. And aiming at play. When we walked in here today, one of the things we said was, let's have some fun,
Yeah.
And I've been thinking this morning too about what attitude I should take coming in to talk to you. And there isn't a better attitude than play. And I think it is because it's the antithesis of tyranny in particular. And then you were talking more about mature play. And that's that good, that also makes sense. This is the issue with the idea that adulthood isn't any fun. It's like, well, do you want to play a simple game? Or do you want to play a really sophisticated game really well? Now, that's going to require some discipline and some training and some maturation, but the payoff is much higher. That's a good way to conceptualize marriage.
The highs are higher when you're successful.
Well, and also the people who have the most sex now are religious married couples.
Really?
Yeah, I know. Isn't that funny?
Which religion?
It's like, yeah, good question, Joe. Good question. Well, I guess in the West that would obviously be Christianity, but it's an interesting case example of the sorts of things we're talking about, because you can imagine at the dawn of the sexual revolution, when the birth control pill became prevalent, that the last hypothesis anyone would have possibly generated was that the cascading consequences of that over 50 years would be, well, radical increase in pornography use because sex has been made less dangerous by the pill, and that the people who are having the most sex would be religious married couples.
Right, but is that true? Because like pornography essentially was very difficult to acquire before the birth control pill was invented.
True.
Right,
but
you used to have to go somewhere to get the pornography. Isn't part of the excess use of pornography just 'cause the access is so instantaneous now?
Oh, definitely. But you could imagine, too, that you might have hypothesized that if the birth control pill took the threat out of sex, that pornography would be less necessary. But that didn't seem to work out.
Right.
So it's certainly the availability is.
We would never know, though, because the birth control was, when was it, 1960 something?
That's really when it
somewhere
started
around then?
Yeah, when it started to ramp up, let's say.
It's so crazy because it completely changed the dynamic. Women could have sex for recreation with people that they didn't even know and not have any consequences in terms of like having to carry that person's child. Whereas that was always a giant fear. If you're a woman, in the back of your head, every time you have sex, you possibly could be taking care of a child for the next 18 plus years.
Yeah. Well, that
every time.
Right.
It's like this thing. This is the consequential thing where it's with a guy. It's like you have this biological imperative to spread your seed, but you're not thinking about making babies, right? You're thinking about sexual activity. When a guy's having sex, he's not thinking, I can't wait to make a baby. You're just thinking, boy, sex is going to be great. I'm excited. Oh, boy, that's fun. You're not thinking, I'm making a kid, because that would make you hesitant, and nature's not interested in hesitation. Nature's like, no. Let's just make you dumb as fuck for about 20 minutes and focus on one goal.
So why did you get married?
Well, I love my wife. She wanted to get married. We had a child. It seemed like a good thing to do. It's like at a certain point in time, making a baby is more of a commitment than getting married. You made a life, you know? Like the commitment of getting married seemed
right.
Of course. But it's also...
But why did you stay committed then before the marriage once you had a child?
I just
now,
think
you said
it's
you
a
loved
thing
your
to
wife.
do. I love her. It's a thing to do. It's a life in raising a child became everything. It becomes a very different thing, right? I think I have a lot of friends who don't have kids, and I'm not the type of person that thinks everyone should have a kid. You know, I know a lot of people with kids, they do say that. I don't think everyone should have a kid. I think you should do whatever you want. I don't know how your brain works. I assume your brain works along similar lines with me, but there's a thing that happens when you
It's a scary thought, Joel.
Well, similar lines. I think we all share similar lines. There's an empathy that comes from having a child that's so different, and an understanding that we are all babies that grew up. We all start off as these bundles of potential and genetics, and then we're influenced by so many different things. There's so many different factors. But I used to think of people as being grown up all the time. And then when I had kids, I was like, oh, we're all just babies. We're all just babies that have just been alive for a long time. You know, everyone started out as a baby, and it just profoundly changed the way I interact with people, the amount of compassion I have for people, the amount of charity that I have for people, the charitable way in which I think about them when they do something or they say something. I give people the benefit of the doubt way more. And Dave Chappelle said this to me once at the Comedy Store, and it was very profound. He said, having children didn't just change the amount of love I have, it changed my capacity for love. And I was like, ooh, that's it. You just nailed it. You just nailed it. You know, because when there's private moments when you talk to people about their children, about having children and what that's like. It's a very psychedelic experience.
That would be another reason why the family with children is the foundation of the community, has to be the foundation of the community. I mean, it's kind of obvious from a biological perspective,
Yeah.
let's say. No children, no community. But there's no reason to assume that you wouldn't get radically better at something with necessity and practice. And if you're practicing loving your infant and your child, well, why wouldn't that generalize? Why
Sure,
would that
but
capacity develop?
it's not like a practice. It's like an overwhelming desire that comes about, like the love you have for your child is like, it's not like anything else. It's very different. It's very.
Yeah.
My friend Jim Brewer said this once. He said, when I had a child, that's when I really understood murder. Really understood, like, my capacity to defend my child is like, I never understood, like, how could somebody kill somebody before? He was like, oh, now I get it. Now
Yeah.
I get it. And, you know, that's real too. And that's also tribal, right? So it's not just your child. It's the child of everyone around you in your tribe. And then you think that you are being invaded by an oncoming tribe. And genetics and history dictates you have to be insanely ruthless to fight off that tribe. There's no other way for survival, which is really wild, right? Because those people have that same feeling towards their children. It's like that Sting line, if the Russians love their children too. This episode is brought to you by Paleo Valley. Are you looking for a great tasting snack that is absolutely protein packed in? Paleo year and even their Paleo % off.
I've talked to people who they can't understand how someone could be with the same woman indefinitely, let's say. Or these are people who usually haven't been able to establish that within their own life. And of course, the price you pay, assuming it's a price, for foregoing all others is that, well, that's exactly it. It's a major sacrifice. And so what role do you think that love plays? Like, how do you conceptualize the relationship between that love that you described and that willingness to stay in a permanent relationship and the willingness also to not pursue any other women? How do you understand? How does that make itself manifest in your life? I mean, I presume that you had opportunities of all sorts.
I presume you do as well.
In principle, I suppose they don't seem to
You're
come
a hot
to me in a
professor type
sense.
character.
And
Back in the
nothing-
day, guys like you would be banging their grad students. Not guys like you, but guys in your position.
Yeah. Well, there
right?
were guys.
Wasn't that always the thing? This is
yes.
a fascinating aspect of
I seem to
academia.
shut that off pretty much at the beginning. Eh?
Well, they seem to have completely stopped that. Like if you go back to Feynman and Oppenheimer and famous scientists were notoriously playboys, which is really interesting because it's like these wild, innovative people were essentially like intellectual rock stars, right? And then somehow or another that just got stopped. Like if you were a professor in the 1960s, like the girls would be wooing the professor. They would be excited. These 22-year-old graduate students would be so excited to be talking to this like incredibly famous intellectual. And they all, were ladies' men. Like Feynman was like famous for chasing skirts. That was like part of the thing. He does a lot of math and chases skirts. You know, that is a giant distraction to people that are trying to get things done in life. And it's also a distraction from your own personal development, I think. I think you could be with the wrong person and want to be with other people, and that makes sense. But really what that is you should not be with that person anymore, which is unfortunately the case. Like, there's a lot of guys who wind up with really hot women who are out of their fucking mind, and a lot of women who wind up with really hot men who are not what they thought they were going to be, you know? And if you find yourself in this situation where you're with this pathological person and you're trying to make it work, and you realize at a certain point in time, like, I'm not going to make it work. Like, this is, you have to be able to just like jump ship. That's why people are hesitant to get married. That's what really dangerous about marriage. It's not like being with one person you really love being with. Like, I really love being with my wife. She's fun. Like, we have date nights all the time. We have a lot of fun. You know, we really do. It's enjoyable. But
why did you decide to set up date nights? How did you go about that? I mean, I know that's personal, and I don't want all the gory details, let's say.
No, it's really simple. We just enjoy hanging out together. We have a lot of laughs. And so we just said, like, it's kind of important because I'm so fucking busy that we schedule time that's just unavoidable. Like this is what we're doing. We're going to do this.
Yeah,
and then we
I
do
do
it.
that
And
with
then,
Tammy, too.
Yeah.
We've done that for like 30 years.
I think most married couples will tell you that that's important. Most married couples will tell you that that's kind of the secret. And it's the secret is
it's
like
also we've done that for like 30 years.
I think most married couples will tell you that that's important. Most married couples will tell you that that's kind of the secret. And so we just said, like, it's kind of important because I'm so
personal, and I don't want all the gory details, let's say.
No, it's really simple. We just enjoy hanging out together. We have a lot of laughs. And so we just said, like, it's kind of important because I'm so fucking busy that we schedule time that's just unavoidable. Like this is what we're doing. We're going to do this. And then we do
I
it.
that
and
with
then,
Tammy, too.
Yeah.
We've done that for like 30 years.
I think most married couples will tell you that that's important. Most married couples will tell you that that's kind of the secret. And it's the secret is
it's
like...
also the best thing, as well as being the secret.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Like, if the person that you're with is fun. That's the real problem is sometimes people they pick people that are hot. That's it. You know, hot and willing and nice enough. Nice enough to be around. Then you deal with all the other crazy nonsense, and you're setting yourself up for... I've had many friends ruin their fucking lives. And then they go through divorces, and you've said this best, that one of the things that women are very good at is reputation destruction. I have seen that happen. So imagine you are legally entangled with someone who at one point in time you loved intimately, and now that person is trying to destroy every aspect of your life. And you have to pay for their lawyers. So you have to pay for the general of the army that's trying to destroy your kingdom. And I've seen this happen to many of my friends. And that is why people are afraid of marriage. That's why people are afraid of commitment. Because the disastrous implications of, like, what can happen if it goes sideways? Like, what can happen if you wind up hating each other? And what can happen if you just lie to yourself and you trick you, like... Some of the hesitation that I had for getting married is most of my friends that got married when I was young all went through horrible divorces. When I was on news radio, Dave Foley, Stephen Root, and Phil Hartman were all going through it in different levels of psychosis. Obviously, Phil Hartman's being the worst because his wife shot him when he was leaving her, by the way. He decided to leave her, and he tried to leave her a few times. And she shot him in his sleep, and then she shot herself. It's a horrible, horrible story. But Stephen Root went through it, and they'd confide in me, and I'd be like, oh, Jesus Christ. The amount of money these women were trying to get from them when they knew that they couldn't afford this. So one of the dirty tricks that will happen with divorce lawyers, with people that are on sitcoms, is when you get on a sitcom, if you're an actor and you get on a sitcom, it is the most stable job, the greatest job in show business for a lot of them. because you're going to get a steady check. You're going to do 24, maybe 26 episodes a year. You're making more money than you've ever made in your whole life. But then you get divorced. So what happens is it gets set up where your ex-wife wants a percentage of what you're making at this very unrealistic level where you're never going to achieve this again. And for Dave Foley, it was so bad that at one point in time, I don't believe he was allowed to go back to Canada. I don't know if that's changed, but the judge literally told him, when he told the judge, like, I don't have that kind of money anymore. I don't have the potential for earning. I was on a hit sitcom, like not even a hit sitcom, but I was on a sitcom on NBC, paid a lot of money, and that was the only time I made that kind of money. The judge said to him, your obligation to pay has no relation to your ability to pay. That's Canadian judges for you. Just insane. And, you know,
those are words you never want to hear even once in your life.
I love him. So I was going through this pain, not like he was, but just like, oh my God. So there's 3 people that I was very close to. And then most of the other people that I knew, you know, I knew so many people. Fortunately, my mother and my stepfather have a great relationship, and they have for a long time. So I had that modeled. Like, they were always very close, and they didn't fight, which is really nice. It was really nice to have that as a model. You know, like where I realized, okay, it's not, everybody's not at each other's throats all the time. And some people actually do enjoy spending time together.
You know, Tammy and I on the tour, she started to introduce me 2 years ago and to talk about some of the things we're doing in the family, some of our family business, talk about Peterson Academy, talk about essay. And so she'd go out on the stage. And
was that the first time she had ever gone on stage in front of, you do enormous crowds.
Yeah, well, so first of all, she did that, and then we replaced the business discussion, because we were just doing an update about the family, you know, and so she'd do that. We replaced that with ads, and then she started to talk. She talked about the rules, say, in 12 Rules for Life, or some of the religious things I've been dealing with lately, and she'd relate that to something in her own life. And then she does the Q&A at the end of the lecture. And part of that was just, she was along with me, and part of that was Michaela was introducing me for a while and then had to go back to her work. And so we slotted Tammy in because it seemed like a good business decision. But one of the things we figured out very quickly that was really a shock to us was that people really liked, especially the Q&As, because what people will offer their questions electronically on this platform called Slido, which is a very good platform for such things. And then they could upvote the questions, and then Tammy would sort them and ask me questions kind of from the top down that were thematically relevant to the lecture that I had given. But we found very quickly that people really liked that because they hadn't seen a couple engage in civilized discussion ever. Seriously. Like,
yeah,
it was
there's
really,
a lot of that out there.
It was really shocking, Joe. Like, you know, I was shocked when I first started touring by how demoralized people were. Like, that was really striking and painful to see that on such a mass scale. And then also to see how little encouragement it took to have a really major effect. I mean, there's a positive aspect to that too, but there's also a tragic aspect. It's like, you mean you just need to have some encouragement and that was enough and you never got that, like even once? That's rough when you see that in thousands of people.
Right.
And it was the same thing. We found it was the same thing with regards to seeing a functional couple, at least even that model. Because, you know, Tammy asked me questions and she thinks about the questions and then sometimes she comments, but not that much. But she actually listens to the answers and she wants to hear the answer. And so, and that dynamic is being played out on stage, and people found that very heartening. And well, that shows you, well, you said, you know, yourself, and this is why I brought it up, because you had the example from your stepfather and your mom of this long-term relationship that worked. I mean, how the hell do you orient yourself if you haven't seen that anywhere?
Right. And then you consider relationships just like all the bad ones, and like you're going to be burdened and locked into that. Did you ever see that video where Alec Baldwin and his wife are on the red carpet and they're being interviewed and they're asking them questions and the wife starts talking, and Alex chimes in about something, and she said, "You're not talking. I'm talking. When I'm talking, you're not talking." On camera. And you watch this, you're like, yo, that's what everyone's scared of.
Right.
That's
right.
what
Definitely.
You want to
That
talk
competition.
about like tyranny. The tyranny of being trapped in a relationship like that is like, and sometimes one person is so overbearing that the other person just sort of submits to it, right? And then you're just like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this. And so then you're just trapped, and this person's insulting you and humiliating you publicly. That was the case with Phil Hartman. I got to see that. We would all go, like, we went to a party once, and I remember she was talking about ex-boyfriends, that she loves pickup trucks because her ex-boyfriends had pickup trucks, and they would climb into the back of these pickup trucks. And I was like, what the fuck? But she was doing it on purpose to like make him squirm and make him uncomfortable. And she would say things like, talk about how he's old. Oh, he's old. He doesn't, he doesn't like to do anything. It was just public humiliation in front of friends, where you're in this like arena where he can't say anything.
Yeah.
He can't just go, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, why are you talking to me like that? Like, why are we doing this? He can't do that because he's public. And he's out with us.
Maybe he should do it anyways.
Probably should do it anyways.
Yeah, probably.
But we're all out, and Phil was all about like appearances. How things looked.
Right.
One of the things that he was afraid of with getting married was that he was just starting to break into films, and a lot of the films that he was doing were very like family-friendly films, and it helped that he was a family man. If he was
right, so he had an act he had to sustain too.
He had an image, right, and this was critical in Hollywood. Like, they had ideas of who you were. Okay, you're a family man. Okay, good. And so if you have this radical change in your life where no longer you're a family man, and if you want to be honest about it and you want to say, I was in a toxic relationship and some of it was me and some of it was her and this is what happened, like, whoa, now you're opening up the world to this big can of worms. Better to keep that can sealed.
Yeah, well, it's generally better not to have your fights in public, and it's certainly better. I've been thinking about this commandment to honor your mother and father, and I've been thinking about what that means. I read this book called Angelus Ashes by Frank McCourt, and Frank had a really alcoholic father, like an Irish alcoholic father back in the 40s. Oh yeah, and he drank every cent the family had, and they lived in terrible poverty.
Well,
and his sister
disease.
died, and like it was rough. But he said his father was often sober in the morning, and he established a relationship with like good morning sober father, and kind of put alcoholic, drunken, nighttime father in a different bin, and he could get the benefit of having a father in consequence of that. And that honoring, that's also something that you want to do within a marriage, right? Because your wife is your friend and your lover, but she's also your wife, and you're her husband, and that means that a part of keeping that marriage working is honor. And part of the honor is that you don't do that sort of thing in public.
Right. Right. You don't humiliate each other. And you don't fight in public.
Well, that's also in some ways independent. In a way, it's independent of who your wife or husband is. It's like, you could imagine two people fighting in public and one of them or both of them really deserving to have that fight as people. But then to keep the marriage intact, you have to remember, well, this is my wife. She's not just my friend. She's not just someone I know. She's my wife. And we shouldn't be doing primate dominance hierarchy maneuvering in public. We shouldn't be competing for power, because that's going to destroy the marriage.
Yeah.
And so that's part of that honoring, I think, is to remember the role and to keep it, well, sacred is really right, sacrosanct.
Here's another one. Don't ever insult each other, even though you want to. Like, you want to, like, be mean sometimes. Like, people get mean to you. You want to be mean back. I don't do that with my friends, so I don't do that with anyone else. I don't want to do that. That's why I don't do it online. I don't get involved in these, like, hissy-pissy fits online, particularly on Twitter. I just don't think
the prime place for such things.
That's all it is. First of all, again, as someone who looks at everyone like a child or like a baby, I'm not angry that people do that. I understand the appeal of it. If I was 15 and Twitter was around, I would be tweeting at every fucking celebrity saying, you're a loser, jump in front of a bus. I would say things just to try to get a reaction out of them. I think a lot of kids do. I think a lot of people don't feel like they have a voice, and one way to be heard is to be insulting, and one way to hurt is to be negative. If you look at the majority of discourse on social media in regards to hot button issues, it's disrespectful. It's contentious. It's shitty and insulting. And I've decided, like, over time in my life to not do that. I don't want to do that. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that kind of conflict. Like, I see real conflict all the time as an MMA commentator. You know, I see the most violent legal conflict other than war all the time. That's conflict. That's like real conflict and resolution and, you know, purposeful, agreed upon conflict. Like regular, like back and forth insult. Wouldn't it be better to figure out what you agree and disagree on and why and talk? Like, why can't we all figure out how to do that? That should be a discipline you learn at an early age. Most of the issues that people have, if the person comes at you insulting and aggressive, either that person is ignorant or they're playing a game, okay? And the game is to get your emotions up, to get you reactive, and to be reacting to them instead of acting. The game is like if someone's hyper-aggressive in a fight, the game is to put you on the defensive so that they don't, like, the best defense is a good offense. You learn that early on in fighting. So you learn that you can be very offensive and then the person never has a chance to get their game going. And that's the case with conversations too. So there's a gamesmanship to this kind of communication where it's not just communicating. It's communicating, but it's essentially intellectual one-upsmanship and sparring. You're sparring. You're scoring points. You're trying to dunk on each other. And I get that. I've done that before. I've engaged in it. It's never satisfying. It always feels gross. Even if you win, it's gross. Like I've said this before, like even like publicly things that I felt like I had to do, like the Carlos Mencia conflict that I had way back in 2007 where I accused him of stealing material and it became this viral video and then a bunch of other comedians jumped in and we all agreed there was a real problem. There was a real problem because he was very famous and he was being protected by these agencies who were profiting off of him being famous. They didn't want that train to stop. I still, to this day, wonder if I would ever do that again because the negativity that came my way from people that were fans of his was it's so overwhelming if you're paying attention to it. It's like, what did I open up? Like, ugh. Even though I knew it was necessary. Like what? And that is also why people are negative because they want to stop you from engaging in conflict that's going to hurt them. You know, so they try to hurt you as much as possible. So you're like hesitant to do it. I don't want to wade into those waters. Ooh, it's dangerous, filled with sharks.
Well, you could imagine maybe, I think this is worth delving into in some depth. You could imagine that there's various ways of attaining status, renown, reputation. Status isn't exactly the right word because reputation is better because you can have a reputation that you deserve, right? And so people do work for reputation and all things considered, that's a good thing.
Earned reputation.
Earned reputation. Earned reputation. Earned valid
truly
reputation.
Unique. Where Jordan, that guy, that's a unique human being, and that's a real reputation.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
kind.
Okay.
That's what people want.
Right. Right. And it's also there isn't anything more valuable that you can have than that. Not even close. This is why, by the way, this is very cool. It's a bit of an aside, but it's worth bringing up. In the Gospels, Christ tells people to store up treasure in heaven where it doesn't rust, where the thieves can't steal it. That's reputational treasure. Right? So the idea is that if you conduct yourself impeccably, you'll develop a storehouse of reputation that will withstand all catastrophe. There's no place you can put your wealth that's more effective than that. It's the least violatable place, and that's right. It's right.
Right.
And so, but the problem is, and this is a really tricky problem, and you're touching on it, is that the reputation game can be gamed. Okay, so when your reputation rises, your serotonin levels rise. And that makes you less sensitive to negative emotion and more sensitive to positive emotion. So that's a really good deal. And what that also means is that there's a high psychological benefit to status increase, reputational increase, and a real cost to reputational decrease. So that's partly why people don't like losing face, for example, because their emotions dysregulate. Okay, so now the best way to play that game is to establish a genuine reputation. And the best way to do that, you've done this, by the way. I figured out this year in my lectures that I'm always trying to answer a question on stage. So that's a quest. And I'm bringing the audience along on a quest. And it's a real quest because I'm actually trying to figure something out. And I do that in real time. And that's a very different game. That's a very different conversational game than the status battle game.
Yes.
Right? Because I could come on here, I don't know if it would work, but I could come on here and I could try to show that I was smarter than Joe Rogan. Now, I've watched you, and that's a very difficult thing to pull off. But hypothetically, that could be my aim, and I could play gotcha questions, and I could lead you into places.
The problem is that wouldn't work because I'm willing to accept that you're smarter than me. First of all, like I talk to a lot of people that are smarter than me, and I like it. It's enjoyable. I don't ever feel uncomfortable talking to people that are smarter than me.
Yeah.
I want to know some things that they can tell me on certain things. I want to educate myself. I want to see how their mind works. I want to be blown away. I don't want to compete with them intellectually. There's times in my life where I would have fallen into that trap.
Yeah.
I think
I think that's what's made. Well, I think that's also what's made you popular and a force for good, is that you are on a quest, and that quest, the consequence of that quest, if undertaken properly, is reputational enhancement. And people who can't or won't do that, they default to power games. And the part of that's the default to power.
Right.
But it's worsened with social media.
Absolutely.
Because if you meet someone and they're playing a power game with you, you can just decide not to have anything to do with them anymore, or you can put a stop to it if you need to. But on social media, you can't, because they're distant from you, and they're often also anonymous. And so they can play power games to enhance their reputational status falsely with no consequences. And the social media is rife with that. And it's really a problem. Like, I think that virtualization has enabled the psychopaths.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, well.
Without a doubt.
That's a terrible thing, because the psychopathic types, they're always the death of everything. Like, I'm seeing this come up on the right now. So imagine this. I've been working on a new theory of political psychopathology, and I like it quite a lot.
Is this where the term the woke right comes in?
Yeah, well, Lindsay is pointing at that, but he hasn't got the diagnosis exactly right. So it isn't woke. That's not the issue. It's not exactly.
I think
he's one
what
level.
they're talking about is like similar types of behavior.
He is talking about that. Yeah, no.
But
What he's pointing.
Woke just lets you clarify in your head. Oh, it's like that.
Yeah, but the problem is
it's like Antifa.
Yeah, absolutely. But the problem is that argument is predicated on the claim that the ideas are the problem, like the woke ideas, for example, on the right or the left. But that's not the problem. The problem is that 4 to 5% of the population, something like that, is cluster B, that's the DSM-5 terms, histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, psychopathic, or they have dark tetrad traits, they're Machiavellian, they're sadistic. That's about 4%. Okay, so the question is, how do these people maneuver? And the answer is they go to where the power is, and they adopt those ideas, and they put themselves even on the forefront of that.
Right.
But the ideas are completely irrelevant.
Right.
All they're doing is they're the Pharisees. They're the modern version of the Pharisees. They're the people who use God's name in vain, right? As they proclaim moral virtue.
Yes.
Doesn't matter whether it's right or left or Christian or Jewish or Islam. They invade the idea space, and then they use those ideas as false weapons to advance their narcissistic advantage.
Yes.
And so then you have the problem, and the right's going to face this more and more particularly, because the left had to face it when they were in power.
Yes.
How do you identify the psychopathic parasites, 4% of the population who are clothed in your clothing and
Right.
waving your flags,
Right.
but who are only in it for narcissistic benefit. You know, the people who studied the dark triad, these were people who originally studied psychopaths, and they moved into ordinary personality, so to speak, on the fringes. It showed that the non-criminal psychopaths, so the fringe cases, are Machiavellian. They use their language to manipulate. They're narcissistic. They want unearned reputation. That's what a narcissist wants. And they're psychopathic, which makes them predators or parasites. Okay, that's pretty bad, those three things. But they had to expand the nomenclature after a while because they found that they were also sadistic, which implied that if you're Machiavellian and narcissistic and psychopathic, you develop a sufficiently bad view of your fellow man that their undeserved pain is a source of pleasure to you. And that's what's being enabled online.
Yes.
Like, see, because we've evolved real specific mechanisms to keep such things under control in face-to-face interaction. Lack of anonymity, for example, within a community. Psychopaths in the real world, they wander. They have to move from place to place because people who
Right.
figure out who they are, and they're held responsible. They're particularly held responsible by men. But online, they escape from that. They escape from that protective. They escape from that system of constraints, and they have free reign, and they can find other people like them very rapidly, and they can gang together. And so this is like, I can really see this starting to happen on the right. Like, I've been tracking psychopathic behavior on the right for probably 4 years, something like that, especially on the anti-Semitic side, because that's really where it reared its head first. And
Why is that?
there's nothing more annoying than a successful minority. Right. Now, that's part of it. And I'm going to, I might as well get myself in trouble right away, too.
Yeah, for sure.
well,
this is a third real subject.
Well, so, it's a real terrible subject.
It's interesting because if you don't criticize it enough, you're compromised. If you criticize, you know, it's like when it comes to anti-Semitism, like it's one of those things where you can't separate. It's a religion, and it's also a race, and it's also a government.
Mm-hmm.
That's where things get weird.
Right.
And then there's also the concept of intelligence agencies and compromise that also gets attached to it, the manipulation of world markets and money, and there's a lot to unpack. And then there's regular Jewish people have nothing to do with that.
Well, the Jews, too, they're very successful.
Yeah.
And so what you would expect from a purely statistical point of view is you'd expect them to be overrepresented at the extremes.
They're also a walled garden, right?
Meaning?
Meaning it's very difficult to join. They don't proselytize. They don't try to get you to join.
Right.
And they're all very tightly knit. They call themselves the Klan. They're all like locked in. The Jewish Klan, not KKK. The problem with that term has been compromised by the Ku Klux Klan. But I mean it as terms of tribe.
Well, community.
Yeah, community. They're very tight knit in that regard. They stick together.
Well,
and if you understand the history, obviously, of Nazi Germany and of persecution in Eastern Europe, you have to. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, all these complex things are multidimensional. I mean, I watched your whole conversation with Douglas, and I thought you guys did a very credible job, all three of you, of navigating unbelievably choppy waters. So that's the first thing I'd like to say, because one of the things I was trying to figure out when I was watching that is, do I think I could have done a better job of any of you? And I certainly didn't walk away from it with that idea in mind. But then underneath all that, I thought there's a really unbelievably tricky problem here, and I think that's why it's made it poked up into. Well, you also set that conversation up, but it poked up and made itself manifest in that conversation. And the issue is, how do you identify the psychopathic pretenders? And it's even worse now, and then make a barrier, right? Now, the right was calling for the left to do that for decades,
right?
And they didn't, and they couldn't. And the left is not good at drawing barriers, partly temperamentally. The right is somewhat better, but there's no shortage of monstrosity there. And so then the question is, how do you draw the line? And that's kind of what I was, because I've been watching these right-wing, they're not right-wing, these psychopathic types